David lived with his parents in a small, simple house in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't a rich family's home. The walls weren't new. The roof sometimes made noise when it rained. But inside there was something very precious. Love. His parents worked hard, very hard. His father woke up early every morning, sometimes before sunrise. His mother went to bed late, always tired, but always smiling when she saw her son. They didn't have much money, but they did everything so that David wouldn't lack anything. And they had to choose between their own needs and David's. They always chose David. David saw it. He felt it. He didn't always dare say it. But deep down, he knew he had exceptional parents. In the evening after dinner, when the house became quiet, his parents often talked about his future. He spoke softly, but David heard everything. His father often said with a voice full of hope, "When David gets his baccalaureate, we'll fight for it. Even if it's difficult, I want him to go to France. There, he'll have a future." His mother never agreed. She shook her head and replied, "No, France is too complicated. Canada is better. It's safer. There he can study well." Sometimes the discussion turned into a small argument. Nothing mean, just two parents who loved their son too much. David, for his part, stayed seated in a corner. He pretended not to listen, but he listened to everything. He watched them argue for him, and he smiled. That smile wasn't a mocking smile. It was a smile of pride. He told himself in his heart, "They fight for me. They dream for me." He knew he didn't have an easy life. He saw the difficulties. He saw the sacrifices. But he knew one very important thing. He wasn't alone. When he was afraid, his mother reassured him. When he doubted, his father encouraged him. He often repeated to him, "Work hard at school. It's your future. We'll fight for you." David believed his words. He believed in his parents. At that time in his life, David didn't dream of wealth yet. He didn't dream of big houses. He didn't dream of cars. He only dreamed of succeeding to make his parents proud. He didn't know it yet, but this simple happiness was about to disappear very soon. But at that precise moment, one thing was true. David wasn't rich, but he was loved. That day, David came home from school as usual, his bag on his shoulder, his head full of thoughts. He pushed open the door of the house. Silence. A strange silence. Too calm. Usually, he heard his mother's voice or the radio his father liked to listen to when returning from work. But there, nothing. David slowly put down his bag. He looked around. "They'll come home later," he told himself to reassure himself. He sat down. He waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. The sun began to set. Night was approaching. David began to worry. But he still told himself, "They're probably late." Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Knock. Knock. David got up quickly. His heart was beating fast, but he was already smiling. He thought it was his parents. He opened the door with a big smile. But what he saw froze him. It wasn't his father. It wasn't his mother. It was a policeman. The man was serious, his gaze heavy. "Good evening. Are you David?" David nodded. "Yes. What's wrong?" The policeman took a small pause, as if searching for words. Then he spoke softly. "We're sorry to tell you that your parents had a serious car accident." David remained frozen. He didn't understand yet. The policeman continued. "They didn't survive." At that precise moment, David's world collapsed. His legs could no longer carry him. He fell to the ground. No, it's not possible." He screamed. He cried. He screamed again. His heart was breaking into 1,000 pieces. All the images came back to him at once. His mother's smile, his father's voice, their dream for him. Everything had just disappeared. The policeman stayed a few seconds, then left. The door closed. David remained alone. Alone in the house, alone with the silence, alone with immense pain. That day, David lost more than his parents. He lost his world. He lost his security. And without knowing it, his life had just changed forever. During the wake, the house was full of people. Voices, cries, prayers. Uncles, aunts, neighbors surrounded David. They hugged him. They spoke to him softly. "Don't worry, my son, you're not alone. We're your family," David cried. He listened. He wanted to believe their words. On the day of the burial, the pain was even stronger. Seeing the coffin descend into the ground, it was like burying a part of himself. His uncles and aunts looked at him with compassion. They repeated to him, "We'll do everything your parents did for you. You're our responsibility now." Those words comforted David a little. After the burial, it was decided that he would live on the family plot, where several family members already lived. They showed him a small studio, a single, simple, empty room. "This is where you'll stay," they told him. David put down his bag. He looked around. It wasn't really a house, but he told himself it was temporary. The first days, everything seemed normal. People still came to talk to him. They asked if he was okay, but deep down, David felt something changing. The looks became colder, the words fewer. And one evening, alone in his small studio, David understood one thing very clearly: promises are easy when the pain is still fresh. That day, without knowing it, David had just entered a new life, a life where he would have to learn to fight alone. At first, everything still seemed normal. They gave David food in the morning and evening. It wasn't always much, but it was enough, and David always said thank you. He tried not to bother, not to ask too much. He told himself it was normal, that everyone was suffering a little. But over time, things changed. One day, David came home from school. He put down his bag. He waited for mealtime. Nothing. He told himself the meal would be later. He waited more. Night came. There was still nothing to eat. His stomach hurt, really hurt. So David got up and went to knock on his uncle's door. He asked softly, "Please, is there something to eat?" They answered without looking at him, "We have nothing today." David returned to his small studio, but as he walked, he smelled something. The smell of rice, sauce, hot meal. His heart tightened. The following days, the same thing repeated. He came home in the evening, there was nothing. He asked, "They always said we have nothing." Sometimes he lay on his bed, eyes open, stomach empty. He was hungry, but he cried silently. One day, when he asked for food again, his grandmother exploded in front of everyone. At 20 years old, you can't find your own food. If your parents accustomed you to ease, here, it's not like that. The words were harsh, very harsh. The whole family was there. No one defended him. Some laughed, others mocked. David stood there, head bowed. At that precise moment, he understood something very important. He no longer had parents, and he no longer had family. That day, David didn't cry in front of them. He went back to his studio. He closed the door, and for the first time, he accepted a painful truth. He was alone. Despite everything, David continued going to school. Every morning he got up with an empty stomach, but he left anyway. He walked a long time, head heavy, heart tired. At night, when everyone was asleep, David cried, not loudly, silently. He thought of his parents, their dreams for him, their sacrifices. Sometimes he wondered if he would hold on, but he told himself one thing: I must succeed for them. The day of the baccalaureate exam finally arrived. David entered the exam room, hungry but focused. The hours passed slowly, very slowly. When the results came out, David looked for his name. His heart was beating very fast. Then he saw his name on the list. He had succeeded. For a few seconds, he remained motionless. He couldn't even smile. He went home with this news. Deep down, he thought someone would be happy for him, but when he announced that he had passed the baccalaureate, no one reacted. Someone even replied in a cold voice, "He passed the baccalaureate, so what? Does that feed you?" Those words took his breath away. David withdrew quietly. He entered his small studio. He sat on the bed. He cried not because he had failed, but because he had succeeded without anyone to share that moment. He took his diploma. He looked at it for a long time, then folded it carefully and put it in a suitcase. That day, David understood something very important. A diploma doesn't fill an empty stomach. If he wanted to survive, if he wanted to eat, if he wanted to live, he had to work. Even if it wasn't his dream, even if it was hard. That day, David made a choice of survival, and his life took another path. After putting away his diploma in the suitcase, David had no choice. He had to work. Very quickly, he found work as a laborer on construction sites. It wasn't easy work, not at all. Every morning, David got up before the sun. At that hour, he was already on the site. The noise, the dust, the heat, the sun beat hard on his head. His hands became rough. His back hurt. Sometimes he wanted to give up. But he continued. He worked until 8 p.m., tired, exhausted. But for the first time in a long time, he ate. It wasn't much, but it was earned. Honestly, every day, when he received his small salary, David spent almost nothing. He counted every coin, every bill. His goal was clear in his head. Go to France. When the work became too hard, he talked to himself. Hold on, this is for your future. Months passed. 1 month. Then months. Then 8 months. 8 months of fatigue. 8 months of sacrifice. One day, David counted his money. His heart was beating very fast. He had enough. Enough for the visa, enough for the ticket. That evening, alone in his small studio, David sat on his bed. He looked at the ceiling, then closed his eyes. He spoke softly, as if he could hear him. Dad, Mom, I'm going to make you proud. His eyes filled with tears. But this time, they weren't tears of pain. There were tears of hope. For the first time in a long time, David saw a light at the end of the tunnel. One evening after work, David gathered his courage. He decided to announce the good news to the family. They were sitting outside as usual. They were talking, laughing. David approached and simply said, I have my visa. In 1 month, I'm leaving for France. Silence fell suddenly. Then smiles appeared. But they weren't smiles of joy. They were strange, forced, cold smiles. Oh, really? That's good. David looked at them one by one. He didn't understand. No one really congratulated him. No one asked questions, but David didn't think too much about it. Was too happy. That evening, he went back to his small studio. He took out his visa, his money. He looked at them for a long time, then carefully put them away in a drawer. He locked the drawer. Before going to sleep, he smiled. He told himself, soon, my life will change. Dad, Mom, I'm almost there. The night was strange. David slept poorly. He woke up often. He heard small scratching noises like something moving. His heart was beating fast, but he fell back asleep. Morning came. David got up quickly. His first reflex was to go to the drawer. He put in the key, opened it, and their time stopped. The visa was in pieces, the money torn, cut up. David remained frozen. His hands were shaking. His legs could no longer carry him. No, he whispered, it's not possible. He fell to his knees. He screamed. He ran outside, heartbroken. A mouse? A mouse ate my visa and my money. The family came. They looked. No one shouted. No one seemed surprised. After a few seconds, someone said calmly, "It's bad luck." Another added, "It happens." David looked up. He was waiting for a gesture, a word of comfort. Nothing. No shock, no sadness, just empty looks. David went back to his studio. He closed the door. He slid down the wall and sat on the floor. He cried. He cried like a child, like an orphan. 1 day passed, then 2, then 10. For 10 days. David barely spoke anymore. He stared at the ceiling. He wondered why everything he had built, everything he had hoped for, disappeared in one single night, and deep in his heart a question began to gnaw at him. Was it really a mouse? Or did someone never want to see him leave? That day, David understood something terrible. Not everyone can handle your success, especially when it's just beginning. And that mistake, speaking too soon, had just cost him almost his entire life. After what happened, David was no longer the same. He walked like a lost man, eyes empty, heart heavy. One afternoon, as he was coming home from work, He ran into his friend Kofi. Kofi looked at him for a long time. "David, what's wrong with you?" David hesitated, then broke down. He told him everything. The visa, the money, the night, the mouse. Kofi listened without interrupting. His face became more and more serious. When David finished, Kofi remained silent for a few seconds. Then he spoke softly but firmly. "This isn't a normal mouse, it's your family." David looked up, shocked. "In Africa," Kofi continued, "you never say you're traveling. Never." A shiver ran through David. Kofi added, "When you announce your departure, some people don't want to see you succeed. They prefer to see you stay like them." David's heart tightened. Everything made sense. The strange looks, the forced smiles, the silence after the discovery. He understood too late. In the following days, David tried to resume his life. He started working again. He fought, but nothing worked. Every project failed. Every opportunity disappeared. It was as if something was blocking his path. David was afraid. So, one morning, he made a decision. He went back to the church where his parents prayed, where he went as a child. When he entered, the smell of the church reminded him of his parents. He knelt down. He didn't pray to travel, not for money. He prayed to survive. Day after day, he continued to pray in the morning. In the evening, and little by little, things began to change. A small job here, an opportunity there. Nothing big, but something was moving forward. David then understood something important. As long as he prayed, he moved forward. That day, David made a promise. Never give up a prayer again. Because he had understood a frightening truth. The fight wasn't just physical, it was also spiritual. For 2 long years, David led a discreet life. He worked, he prayed. He no longer talked about his projects to anyone. During the day, he looked for ways to earn a living. At night, he spoke to God in silence. Every franc was counted. Every expense was planned. Little by little, the money accumulated. This time, David made no announcement. He didn't smile too much. He didn't rejoice out loud. In secret, he redid his papers, the passport, the visa, the ticket. When everything was ready, he said nothing, not even to those he lived with. The day of departure arrived at 5 a.m. While everyone was sleeping, David took his small suitcase. He opened the door gently. He made no noise. Every step scared him. He felt like someone could stop him at any moment. He didn't look back, heading to the airport. When he finally boarded the plane and it took off, David looked out the window. His eyes filled with tears. He whispered with a trembling voice, "Finally, I'm leaving this misery." For the first time in a long time, he could breathe. When he arrived in France, David didn't seek luxury. He wanted to survive first. He found work as a cashier in a supermarket. It wasn't the job of his dreams, but it was honest work. Every morning he got up early. He put on his uniform, went to work. David was polite, respectful, always smiling. Customers noticed him. They often said, "This young man is really well raised." After work, David returned to a modest little apartment he rented. A simple but quiet place. For him, it was already a victory. He slept peacefully. He ate his fill. Among the supermarket customers, there was a woman who came back often. Her name was Christina. She was elegant, always well-dressed, confident. At first, it was just looks, then smiles, then conversations. Christina liked David's kindness, his humility, his courage. Over time, they started seeing each other outside of work. Talking, sharing a relationship. David finally felt loved, protected. But while his life was progressing in France, calls from the family began. "David, where are you now? What are you doing in Europe?" David was afraid. He no longer wanted to tell his real life. So he lied. "I'm not working yet. It's hard. I'm still struggling." He said that so they would leave him alone. So they wouldn't know anything? The calls became frequent. David answered less and less. Little by little, he blocked some numbers, then others. He wanted to cut ties with the past. But in his new life, David prayed less and less. At first, he still prayed in the evening, then only on Sundays, then not at all. Work, love, routine. He told himself, I'm finally out of the struggle. But without realizing it, David was drifting away from God, and when he definitively blocked all his family numbers, he thought he had turned the page. He didn't know yet that this silence would cost him dearly. Over time, the relationship between David and Christina became more serious. Christina saw in him a calm, respectful, hardworking man. One day, she offered him to come live with her. She had a nice house, comfortable, quiet. David accepted, but set a clear boundary. One evening, Christina said softly to him, you don't have to keep working so much. I can take care of everything. David shook his head. No, I work here because right now, it's tough. But one day, I'm going to work hard and buy a house for us. I want us to live in something I've built myself, Christina smiled. She loved his ambition. She loved the fact that he didn't take advantage of her. Life finally seemed stable. One evening, as they were both sitting in the living room, David's phone rang with an unknown number. David hesitated, then answered, yes. Hello. My son, it's your uncle. David's heart tightened. They say you've made it in Europe, continued the uncle, and you forget your family? David replied calmly, no, uncle. I'm still looking. I haven't succeeded yet, the uncle changed his tone. Even if you're looking, help us a little. Send money. David lowered his eyes. I have nothing. A heavy silence followed. The call ended without an answer. Christina, who had heard everything, looked at him without speaking. Her face was shocked. After a long silence, he explained everything to her. His childhood, the death of his parents, the family, the hunger, the prayer, the jealousy, the fear. Christina was shaken. I thought witchcraft was just stories. Lies, David replied softly. Where I'm from. In Africa, it's a reality. Not everyone is happy when you want to get ahead. Christina remained silent for a long time. A few days later, when David thought the worst was behind him, something inexplicable happened. That morning, the house was silent. Too silent. Christina had already left for work. David was alone. He got up as usual. He went into the bedroom. He got dressed slowly. Nothing. David took a deep breath, put on his jacket, and opened the door to leave. Nothing strange, nothing abnormal. But deep down he felt an oppression, as if the air was heavier than usual. He took his hand off the doorknob and opened the door to go out. He simply stepped out, took 2 steps, then stopped. Something was wrong. The ground under his feet wasn't the same. David slowly lowered his eyes to the dust. He raised his head. His heart tightened. He was no longer in front of the house in France. He was standing in the family courtyard in Africa. In his country, the same courtyard, the same worn walls, the same space he knew by heart. As if the door he had just opened no longer led to the same world. David remained motionless. No, he whispered. He turned around slowly. Behind him was the door to his old studio exactly as before. His heart began to beat fast. This isn't possible. And that's when he saw them. His entire family standing in front of him, silent, with fixed gazes. No one was shouting, no one was moving. Then a voice broke the silence. Why don't you answer our calls anymore? Another followed. Why did you forget us? Then a third. Why did you leave without saying anything? David took a step back. No, I just left my house. His voice was trembling. He turned abruptly, opened the studio door, and went inside. He closed the door behind him. He leaned his back against the wall. He was breathing heavily. Okay, I'm dreaming. He looked up. The studio was there exactly as in his memories. The bed, the table, the walls, but something was missing. His things, his bag, his clothes. Panic rose suddenly. David ran out of the studio. He crossed the plot. He ran without thinking until he reached Kofi's house. When Kofi opened the door and saw him, his face froze. David, but weren't you in France? David burst into tears. I opened the door, I was leaving for work, and I ended up here. Kofi didn't laugh. He didn't doubt. He asked one question. Were you still praying? David lowered his head. No, I thought everything was fine now. Kofi sighed slowly. When you were poor, you prayed. When God was protecting you, you held on. But when things started to go well, he paused. You let go of the protection. David was trembling. With Kofi's phone, David called Christina. His fingers were shaking so much he almost dropped the device. The line rang once, twice.
Hello?
Christina's voice was normal, calm. She suspected nothing. David swallowed. Darling, I'm in Africa. Brutal silence. What? Replied Christina. Where are you? In Africa? David repeated, his voice broken. Christina burst into laughter, but it wasn't joyful laughter. David, stop your nonsense. I just left the house. Weren't you still there? David spoke quickly, panicked. I know, I was leaving for work. I opened the door and ended up here. Christina changed her tone. Wait, are you saying you teleported? Then her voice became harsh. Tell the truth, David. Did you take my money and run back to Africa? David's heart broke. What? No! Christina continued, getting more and more angry. Everything was normal yesterday. And now you call me from Africa? Do you think I'm stupid? David started crying. Please, listen to me. I didn't steal anything. I didn't take anything, so explain how you paid for the trip. Christina shouted. The plane, the airport, the ticket. David almost shouted back. I didn't travel by plane. Check the house. Everything is there. He spoke quickly while crying. My clothes are there. The money is there. The papers are there. Even my phone is still at the house. Christina fell silent. Only her breathing could be heard. She looked around. The living room, the bedroom, David's things. Everything was there, exactly as he said. Her voice changed. Wait, do you mean you left with nothing? David sobbed. Yes, I swear, I have nothing on me. Not even my passport. A long silence settled. Then Christina spoke more softly, almost scared. I grew up in France. They always told me things like this don't exist. She hesitated. But now, I believe Africa really isn't like other continents. David closed his eyes. That evening, he knelt down. Alone, exhausted. He prayed as he hadn't prayed in a long time. Forgive me, Lord. I thought I had made it. I forgot to put you first. Give me a second chance the next day. Christina tried to send him money to come back. First time, failure. Second time, the money was sent but never arrived. Again and again, nothing. Christina cried in France. David cried in Africa. They both understood something terrible then. It wasn't just a matter of a ticket or money. It was a deeper, invisible battle. And David had just entered the most dangerous part of his life. From that day on, David no longer slept normally. Every night, as soon as he closed his eyes, the nightmares returned. Always the same faces, always the same voices. His uncles, aunts, grandparents, they were there around him. You'll never go back to Europe. You'll suffer here. You'll die here. David woke up with a start, sweating in tears. Sometimes he screamed. Sometimes he stayed sitting for a long time in the dark, heart pounding hard. Days passed. The nights became harder and harder. One morning, David couldn't take it anymore. He got up and went to see the pastor of the church where his parents used to pray. When he entered the pastor's office, he burst into tears. He explained everything: the nightmares, the family, the blockage, the mystical return. The pastor listened to him for a long time without interrupting. Then he spoke in a grave voice. There are too many sorcerers in your family. They never wanted to see you succeed. He paused. They're the ones who also caused your parents' death. Those words hit David like a punch. The pastor continued. You must never stop praying to escape their grip. You need spiritual warfare, then, he added, you must do a month-long prayer fast. David hesitated for a few seconds. Then he replied, I accept. During that month, David went to live with Kofi. Kofi hosted him. He shared his food with him. Every day, David prayed. Every night, he prayed more. He fasted, he cried, he asked for forgiveness. Sometimes, family members came to Kofi's house. They asked to see him. David refused. Then they left laughing. We've already blocked your life. You won't do anything. But David continued day after day without giving up. After a month of intense fasting and prayers, the pastor called David. He looked at him and said calmly, "God has forgiven you. He will now protect you." David felt something heavy leave his heart. The pastor added, "If you have the money, you can go back to France." For the first time in a long time, David truly breathed. He understood it wasn't over, but that he was no longer alone. That day, David felt deep down that something had changed. He was no longer afraid. He felt protected. He took his phone and called Christina. "Darling, God has protected me. I feel I can leave again." Christina remained silent for a second, then replied, emotionally, "Praise God." David continued softly, "If you send the money now, I can come back." Christina agreed without hesitation. Then David added, a bit embarrassed, "I have another request. Can Kofi come with me? He hosted me, fed me, helped me when everyone abandoned me." Christina thought for a few seconds. Then she simply said, "Okay, he deserves a chance too." That same evening, David went to see Kofi. "Prepare your papers. We're going to France together." Kofi froze. Then his face lit up. "Really?" He smiled. A few days later, they were at the airport. The agents looked at David in astonishment. "But we thought you were already in France?" David replied calmly, "It's complicated." They explained briefly. The agents looked at each other shocked. Then they let them pass. The plane took off. David looked at the sky, this time without fear. When he arrived in France and saw Christina again, he couldn't hold back. He cried, tears of joy, hugs, kisses. After everything he had been through, David was finally back, free, standing, at peace. 5 years had passed. Today, David's life has truly changed. David lives with Christina. He bought the house of his dreams. They built a family. They have 2 children. A house filled with laughter, peace, stability. David succeeded in life, not just with money, but with faith, through work, discipline, and prayer. He became rich, not rich in illusion, rich in true success. Over time, David found the strength to forgive his family. He no longer harbors hatred, but he learned something important. Forgiving doesn't mean getting closer. He avoids his family, changed his phone number. He protects his peace. Kofi also changed his life. In France, Kofi is finally free to breathe, free to hope. One day, tears in his eyes, Kofi said to David, "Thank you. Without you, I'd still be stuck." David hugged him, and today but Christina and Kofi have a habit they never miss. Every Sunday, they go to church together to thank God, to remember where they come from, to never forget that without faith, they would have lost everything. David understood something that few people understand. You can escape misery, you can succeed, but without God, you'll never go far. And if you liked this story, don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel and leave a small comment, even just an emoji. It helps the channel grow a lot and motivates me to tell you even more incredible stories. Thank you for your support. May God bless you.